Welcome to the I Don't Believe in Astrology podcast. The podcast is dedicated to conscious souls looking to change the world. Astrologer by day, climate activist by night. Here is your host, Debra Silverman.
I am only human. I have my faults and my shadows that are as bright as the light that shines within.
Debra Silverman, the I Don't Believe in Astrology podcast, is being honored and tickled. Before we even started, we started laughing. It's not even good. She has brains all over the place. So if you see funny looking things sitting on the side to her little left ear on her shirt or on her sweatshirt, do not be surprised. Yes, thank you very much. This is the brainiac who, when she was little, Jill Bolte Taylor, was extremely smart, and she went to school and studied it. And then you're going to hear the story, which I hope you all know, where whoopsie, something happened radical. What did you call it? An energetic.
I had an energetic explosion.
Yes, and it continues. So don't listen to her. It happened then, but I have had the privilege of spending time with Jill, and I just looked at our charts. Why did I not know this? We both have moon in Aries, so we get a little excited. So I just want to say to everyone, take off your seatbelt and turn off the heat, because it's going to get hot in here. And then we'll just be authentic, because that's the only thing Jill and I know how to do, is just be ourselves. So I'm going to do my version, because everyone's bio is so ridiculous. I'm going to do my version.
Three sentences. You get 3 sentences.
Oh, no, let's do this. Okay. Jill Bolte Taylor, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, is a Harvard trained.
Let me do it.
Okay, you do it.
So I had a brother diagnosed with schizophrenia. I became a brain scientist. I was teaching and performing research at Harvard. I had an explosion in the left half of my brain. I became an infant. I couldn't walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of my life. That was tsunami number 1. I recovered after 8 years. I gave a TED talk. That was tsunami number 2, my book, My Stroke of Insight. And then for the last 10 years, I've been like living life. And now tsunami number 3 is exploding because of my new book, Whole Brain Living. That's it.
But let me just add a little bit to it. This is a spirit. I'm going to do my version. This is a spirit. Jill Bolte Taylor is a spirit who is impossible to try to control. Life loves her. So life follows her around and said, look, we got a hot one here. So we're going to use her as our voice to be able to share with people an alternate point of view that the scientists would have never been able to entertain unless we found a spirit who is both trained in science, but has this incredible, what's that word when you're so what's the word when you're so extremely expressive?
I have no idea.
Jubilant?
Ebullient.
That's the word I was thinking. Yes, thank you. She's the bullying, and we both have a little bit of this together. So if this podcast gets a little, I'm just warning you, if it gets a little, if we explode, you just turn the volume down. You can just watch it without having to hear it, and you'll still feel the energy, because podcast in their true form is here to ignite and stimulate opening. And when Jill and I are together, things get opened. Okay. So I'm going to start with this question. You're going to love this question.
Yeah.
Well, no, let me start with the obvious. I'll get to that. Tell us about the new book. So you've written this new book, and it's about these 4 personalities. I tried to get her to do the 4 elements, but no. She did 4 personalities, and I actually remember them because they were so clear. And you've had this big ride where, just tell us what you just said to me. Someone just called you from.
Yes, I got this new book, Whole Brain Living. It's about four anatomical modules of cells inside of our brain: 2 emotional cells, groups of cells, 1 in each hemisphere, and 2 thinking modules, 1 in each hemisphere. And each of these modules of cells result in skill sets: the ability to speak, the ability to know that this is where I begin and where I end, to know what my name is, to know what your name is, to be able to get here on time. So we have these 4 very distinctive characters. characters. And then we can have these 4 characters come together in what I call a brain, BRAIN is the acronym, a brain huddle, so that we have the power to choose moment by moment who and how we want to be in the world. So it's as though 3 of the unconscious character profiles of Jungian psychology now can all become conscious, so I can live with a whole brain. And so this book, I have all these people now who are running not-for-profits coming to me saying, I just got 25,000 yoga mats in prisons around the country, and I want to bring whole brain living into my network. I've got, I take children who have cancer and take them to camp and help them normalize. And I want to bring whole brain living to the parents and to the kids. I've got people teaching Taoism in China with whole brain living, and they love it because the Taoism, the principle is that character 4, where we're connected to all that is. So it's amazing what's happening right now. It's a big old explosion in my life.
Okay, so now this is a very interesting conversation because this chart, well, so we all know I'm an astrologer, and Jill's chart when she was born, which I'm going to show you, versus Jill's chart, which is radically departed from what happened. But when she was having the stroke, she kind of had like a born again alternate reality. Everything stopped. And you know what's so crazy, Jill? That chart that happened from when you had the stroke, is all about international exposure.
Wow.
So it's not a surprise that you'd come back and become the voice, because I'll show you. So let me just start by saying, sorry, her natal chart, we're just going to briefly look at this, is, here we go. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know why I didn't like expand. I like doing this. If you could just do this with life, like grow things with a button, just push the button, everything. I love that story. Okay. So here we have Jill. She's got Sun in Taurus, Scorpio rising. So let's start there. So Scorpio rising, your soul this lifetime is very deep. You can't do superficial. You love really having meaningful conversations. And your Taurus is like, can we bring it down to earth though? I don't want to just talk about it. I want to bring it into form so I can contribute to the world. That's not just another theory, but it's actually application. And that is so true of Jill. Then she and I both have this moon in Aries, which gets, and Mercury, which means that Mercury is how your mind works. You get so excited and so enthusiastic. You haven't noticed this. And her moon is there standing right next to Mercury, which means that your emotional body is in Aries and you get so enthralled and excited. And we both have the same thing, that we kind of feel like we're 2 years old. And why are we getting so excited all over again? All the time. And then we both have this. We both have Venus in the 8th house in Gemini. We both love to share the gift of the gab in a way that stimulates people to think. It's like our favorite thing. And you love going deep. It can't be superficial. Okay. Yeah. So that was my early version of a Sun in Taurus, Moon in Aries, Scorpio rising. And here's my favorite question. This is a funny question.
Yeah.
If you weren't talking about neurology, Miss Brainiac, what if you had, let's say we had an alternate ego for you. We said, okay, Jill, you're going to stay on this mission. We've got a passion for you over there. And you could do something else. What would you do? What would be something that you just love thinking, talking, reading about?
I'd probably be a sculptor.
Exactly. Oh my God, I love that so much. You would have the artist take over your life.
Exactly.
Oh, that makes me so excited. Are you doing it?
Oh yeah. Here, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you my house, and I'll show you some of the sculpture. So you see this gal right up front?
Yes.
She's my first limestone carving.
It's so Taurus.
You see that piece up there? That is the right brain on top and the yin yang of the left brain below. And then this is, can you see all the color in the windows? Yes. You see all those stars?
Yes.
Each of those stars represents one of my beloved friends. And so this is my universe of love.
Oh, and it's all full of colors. You've got
color.
I love everything about that. Okay. So you would be a sculptress. Okay. Now tell me something about yourself that I'd have to really get to know you. Like I'd have to know you well to know.
My feet, well, my right foot is an 8 and my left foot is a 6.5.
Oh my God. Well, how do you manage that?
I tend to buy 7.5s if the 8 will fit in there, and then I stuff a little pad in the 7.5. in the 6.5 to make it.
But is that your right and left brain doing something funny?
Well, God knows the brain has been doing funny things throughout my life. So I can't tell you, but yeah, probably, Yeah.
I love that story. God, that was such a great answer. Okay, now here's another funny
one.
What was that? I believe you. I believe you.
You don't want to see him? Okay.
Okay, finish this sentence.
Okay.
I wish that people would
love one another. Spend more time loving one another. I believe our number one job in life is to love one another. Period.
And you just love everyone?
It's my job to love people. And
what about the people that you don't agree with?
That doesn't matter. They're still human, and their brain has differentiated in a way that is different from mine. And I mean, it's like my brother. My brother has schizophrenia, and I love him in spite of his illness. And so I may love you in spite of your politics.
Oh my God, Jill. And so in the name of the brain, I think about this a lot. I honestly think about this a lot. Like, the brain has been programmed by obviously a divine influence, because we are creative. I mean, it's beyond belief what we are capable of. And then there's this design fault that limits our capacity to do what you just said. Like, why? I never understand it. What part of the brain, you help me, what part of the brain prevents the love from being able to be the primary influence?
The fear, the amygdala. The amygdala. So we have these two emotional systems. The difference between a reptile, which is our midbrain structures, and a mammal is the addition of limbic tissue, emotional tissue. And emotional tissue in the present moment in the right brain says, right here, right now, in the present moment, am I safe? And it looks pretty safe. I'm not, no arrows flying at my head, right? And the left limbic system gets information about the present moment, and it comes into that left amygdala, which says, is there anything in the present moment that has ever happened in my past that gives me a reason to push away and say no? And so depending on what I feel is familiar and safe, it's that left limbic system from our past and our fear of the future that says, push away, I don't like it, I don't want it. But it says, okay, that's familiar. So I'm a Caucasian, I have blonde hair, I have blue eyes. So I naturally would be comfortable with other blonde hair, blue eyes. And if someone walks in and they have black hair and black eyes, that's different from me. And my left amygdala says, that's not familiar, that doesn't feel safe. But the amygdala in the right hemisphere says, but that's different from me. And so I want to be curious and go to it and learn more about it. So we have these two halves of our limbic system, these two different amygdala. One says push away, and the other one says attract me toward. So I consciously choose when I see something that is different, even if I feel anxiety, it's like, okay, well, that's cells, that's circuits, that'll run its course. But I want to come forward and find the connection, find the similarity. I don't want to fix somebody. I don't want to change somebody, but I want to connect with someone. What do we have in common? And then we can go from there into our differentiation. Why did you vote the way you vote? This is why I vote the way that I vote. But what do we really want at the core of who we are that is the same and similar? So that's what I choose to focus on.
And that's a choice, obviously.
That's a choice. We have the power to choose moment by moment who and how we want to be in the world. I have the power to choose of those four characters, my two thinking modules and my two emotional modules. I have the power to bring all of those together in this brain huddle and say, okay, we're all here. Any of us can pop out in this moment. Do I want to go be a mean Karen and just go spew my venom on somebody? Or do I just want to like step to the side of that? Do I want to fix a problem? Or do I want to just love that person, love myself and go on? We have that power.
Before the stroke, the 23 million people watched you on TED Talk, 23 million. People.
I think we're up to 28.
Oh, sorry. 28 million people watched this woman on a TED Talk. Okay. Before that happened.
Yeah.
Were you, because that clearly was a tsunami.
Yeah.
that reflected the collective needing your wisdom. I mean, from an astrologer's point of view, that was the day of your destiny.
Yes.
Like you were like, okay, want to use me, spirit? But before that happened,
yes.
were you struggling with the amygdala? Like, did your unconscious affect you when your brother was mean? Would it trigger you and you'd operate? Like, what was the transition from you choosing to coordinate these 4 characters versus when you were younger and you were at the victimization? And I'm curious if that was even true of you. Like, did you grow up having an emotional reactive pattern like the rest of us?
Absolutely. 100%.
And then what changed?
I had a stroke. And that part of my brain died. That character, that personality, that little victim, that little girl who had been pounded on every day by a brother who was mean and vicious and sneaky and horrible. And he knows I talk about him like this. He agrees, he was. And that little girl, if you look at the ACE scale for children, I think there's like 10 points. I'm all but one of them. Right. Because, and so then, I've had people say, well, then the natural progression of all of that illness and all that hostility and all that rage and all that lack of fear manifested in me as a stroke. And I would have died that day. And that part of me did die that day, but the rest of me didn't die that day. The rest of me survived. And so then it's like, well, now this is Jill version 2 coming back post-stroke saying, well, I remember with my thinking tissue that I had been abused and traumatized, but I was no longer caught in those loops. And so I lost that left brain. I gained the experience of being at one with all that is as big as the universe, loving and happy and community-based and community-connected to everybody, because Jill Bolte Taylor died that day. That character died that day. And then over 8 years, I used my right brain to rebuild the circuitry of my left brain character 1 thinking and my left brain character 2 emotion. And then the character 1 came back online and said, I want to be the boss again inside of the head. Thanks for reviving me. And the rest of us are going, I don't think so, because it wasn't functioning now from the value structure of me, the individual, me, mine, climb the ladder, materialism, money, all of that. So
can I just now interrupt you and show you, this is the chart of what happened that day.
Wow.
December 10th. Now, this is what's so interesting. The rising sign, ready for this?
Yeah.
Was one with everything. You were Pisces rising, which meant that your soul, the rising sign is a soul. It's what we're rising into. That moment you opened up to Pisces, which is, I accept this reality without boundaries.
Yes.
It's a very right brain function. I am opening myself to letting spirit have her way with me. And I know that there's only one of us here. That's the Pisces conversation.
Yeah.
And then look at this. See, the sun and the moon were exactly together. You see 18 degrees and 18 degrees. This is the sun. This is the moon at that very moment. And they were in the sign of Sagittarius, which is the philosophical giant.
Yeah.
Internationally well recognized on the top of the chart. This is like the zenith of the sky, because here's where the birth was, the center of the chart. The sun and moon were at the very top of the chart. Pisces rising, the mystic, and you became this international philosophical giant that shared with us permission to let go of the old system, the old operating system.
Yes. Put spirituality and science in the same brain, for God's sake. It's in there together.
So if you could redesign the brain, Jill, no one's ever asked you this question. How would you redesign it?
Whole brain living. That's the purpose of this book. Debra, I have to say that this book is the reason why I survived. It's the wisdom I gained, and I'm passing it on to others. And I could fall off the planet in this instant and feel like I served. I did what I survived to do. But, I see myself as a big honking neuron. And now I'm working with all these other neurons and their networks and whole brain living. Whole brain living is the evolution of the human brain, where the thinking tissue in the right brain is working the kinks out with the emotion below of the right here, right now, present moment. The thinking tissue of the left brain is working the kinks out with all the pain from the past and our fear of the future. And then all the kinks are working out between the left, the neocortex and wisdom of our left thinking and our right thinking, and then our emotion. We are evolving into a whole brain. So what we've been doing is, I'm a lot of, how many people say to me, oh, I'm a strong right brain, and my husband, he's a left brain, and together we make a whole brain. And I'm going, you're missing the point. The point is you have all of that inside of your head. Get to know each of these characters inside of yourself, because in every relationship, everyone, we all have 4, which means in every relationship, there's 8 of us. So how are we navigating? And how many people in divorce are getting divorced because now, when the beginning, their character 3 play used to get together with a character 3 play, or a character 3 play got along really well with someone's character 1 organized, but now somebody's in their character 2 not very happy, and the 3 isn't resonating with the 2, and the 4, which is the blissful euphoria, is just watching the whole thing going, wow, this is a mess, right? And so every relationship has all 4. So if I know more my 4 and I understand and love your 4, then we can work together to nurture ourselves out of that little character 2, or figure out where are we in balance and where are we not in balance.
Wow.
That's my dream. Whole brain living world, a whole brain world.
So in my language, in my system, I call it the observer. And the observer is the part that steps outside that whole story, looks over at those characters, and has enough awareness to make a choice that frees them up. Because typically when we're stuck without the observer, we're playing in this, and you say there's 8 characters, there's probably about 25. I mean, there's variations. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So my whole life's work, similar to yours, but different, is to assist people to say, hold on a minute, take a breath, step outside the drama, outside your reactions, outside your habitual patterns.
Yeah.
But it's a muscle.
It is. But when you know, the problem is, here's what I think is the problem. People say, if I'd have known I had another choice, I would have taken the better choice. And when you know these 4 characters, you know what is the value of each of those 4 characters. So you know what is the choice of the character 3. The character 3 is a predictable pattern. So is this what happens to your awareness is on and you're talking to those 4 people in your head? Say it again. So is that what happens to you? Your awareness comes on and you're talking to those 4 people in your head? Oh, I know them all. I know what they feel like in my body. I know who leaps out and who becomes a character. I know them. They're predictable. They're predictable in everybody. It's just circuitry. You're supporting, I mean, your language is different than astrology, but you're supporting astrology. The more self-awareness there is, you get compassion. So when the amygdala goes into reaction, it just happened to me. It's so funny because I was just flying and you're in an airplane and you're in the line and then things go wrong and then somebody starts to scream at somebody and then you watch and my observer comes in. I go, Deb, you're going to be the calm one in the room right now. Exactly.
You are not going to echo.
Exactly. But you could have echoed. Right? You could have jumped right on and said, oh yeah, and commiserated, misery loves miserable company. Or you could have come in as the character 1 and said, okay, I'm going to fix this problem. Let's organize it. Let's figure it out. Let's take some leadership. Or you could just come in and like be playful and, start use your humor and use your wit and start, I've seen you do, my favorite video of you is where you do all of the astrological signs by acting them out. And, boom, entertainment. You could do that, or you could just send love to these people. And we know that love, because essentially when we are in that character 2, unhappy, we are unregulated. Right? We are dysregulated from our normal happy. So if I come in and I say, it's my job to love everyone, and here I've got somebody who's throwing a fit, I will actually put my body next to them, maybe with my back to them so that they're not, going to fume at me. And I just radiate my energy because I'm regulated for love. And everything's energy. And there's no boundary of where I begin and they end, etc. We're just one energy. So I will purposely put myself in the presence of another without them necessarily being aware of it. And I will help regulate them. Now they're going to run a typical loop of 90 seconds. So if I can catch them and they're able to jump off their vibrational, horrible loop, but they may rerun it, at which point my character one might come in and say, can I help you? What can I do for you? What do you need? Would you need to talk about it, or not?
You're so
Whatever.
sweet. I want to put a vote out while people are watching this, my students, and you determine whether this is a sun and Taurus, moon and Aries, Scorpio rising talking, or it's a double Sag, Pisces rising. I want to know, I want to get a vote. Which character do you, because really, Jill thinks that she went through a radical departure from her old self, that there was a death.
Oh, I did.
It would make sense because you're such a philosopher. Were you before the stroke?
I was. Both of my parents were Sag. They were both PhDs and very smart people.
I would say that your humor system, you tell me, if you had to point at what's really changed, were you funny as you are now with before the stroke?
Yeah, I was voted class clown in high school. The biggest difference between me now and me before is now I sit like a big neuron and I attract my world to me. The girl before was a big honking neuron filled with a ball of righteous energy. And I took that and moved it into the world to study mental illness. Because of my brother's mental illness, I became a national advocate. I had a voice in the world. I was climbing the Harvard ladder. I was making it happen. But I was driven to use my anger for a positive outcome. And then when I lost the anger, it was like, oh my God, that's a relief. So now what, right? What now? And then now I just sit back and let it happen and do a little bit of conducting.
With her finger. Okay, let me ask you a funny question. What can't you live without? Like, what's something in your life that you like, I'm just so thankful this is in my existence?
Water.
I knew you were going to say that.
Water. Water's sanity.
So this Jill lives on the water during the summer.
I live on a boat, on an 80-foot riverboat, out in a beautiful cove, out in a beautiful nature. And I spend probably 95% of my time alone. But I have this family of heron who we communicate all throughout the day. I have 3 families of owl who I dance with. I have beaver and turtle. I know I'm only alone from humans. But I have a huge energy and I'm in nature and I just allow it to be, and I sleep over at least 50 feet of water. So the energy bubble of me doesn't hit the cement and splatter. The energy bubble of me is complete. I live inside of this whole energy bubble and I feel full and compassionate and open and powerful and productive. And I paddleboard and I bike on the water and I row and I swim and it's fantastic.
Okay, it's such a great question. Now, this is a good question because you can answer more than one, because I know you've got some dead friends. If there was someone that was either alive or not alive that you could sit down and have a really good conversation with, that you could say, like, this is some person I'd really love to get in there or I'd love to share with, who would it be?
Maybe my mom.
I thought so.
Maybe my mom. She reared me twice. She reared me my first life, and she was a busy woman. She was a teacher. She was a full-time mother of 3. She was the wife of a preacher man with a congregation of 300 families. She was too busy when I was a child. So that was round 1. But I adored my mother. And then when I had the stroke, it was the opportunity for her and me to be mother, daughter, just the two
all over
again.
And then favorite, I'm going to interrupt. One of my favorite parts of your book, I bet everyone tells you this. It's so funny how certain things stay with you that you adjust. So the story goes like this. I love the story because your observer kicked in. Jill had a stroke. She obviously was trained as a brain specialist. She's in the shower. She loses consciousness and she's watching this happen. Her observer kicks in. She loses it enough to be able to call It's so funny. I vividly remember this. They come and they get her. And when she gets to the hospital, she's lost her function completely of her left brain.
Yep.
And then her mom comes and gets on the bed. She doesn't really know what's happening. And when she cuddles her, she goes, oh, this is mother.
This is mother.
That is I don't know. I bet everyone tells you that
That's
moment.
the moment. Yeah.
You know,
That's the
and
moment.
so isn't it interesting, back to the brain, how a story like that will stay with me. It's like last night when I was with Sting, or the other night at the concert, and he told this, you know, of course it's a 2-hour concert, but the one thing we all remembered was that he told the story was, he said, I knew I was a successful songwriter when the guy was doing my windows and I heard him whistling my song. Now, why does that remember? Like all of a sudden you take the most random human snapshot of Jill's mom getting into the bed. And as soon as she cuddled with her, this is the word mom. And with those memories that the mind imprints on an emotionally charged, extreme simple, where the human melds into like your mom holding you.
Yeah.
And I got to meet your mom and I saw the bond, and there's something to be said in this lifetime. And I feel like that with you and I and Lynn, there's beings that you meet where you're like, why am I in love with this person?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always wondered, like in the brain, this is outside the brain. I'm imagining it's karma or it's heart. But why, when there's some people you meet them and you're like, I just want to move in with them. I just want to live with that person. I want to get married. Is that okay? And then I'm like, Debra, control yourself. You can't keep having these thoughts. But it happens to me like, I mean, it's embarrassing. And you have, that's Venus and Gemini, by the way. We fall in love every 14 seconds.
Is that the problem?
Yes.
Well, that's quite a loop. Yeah. Well, that's why you asked me, you know, what do I do? It's like our job is to love one another. And it doesn't matter what your politics are. You're a human. You're this magnificent life force power. Now, I might think your politics are a little skewed from mine, but, you know, there are reasons why. That's your brain circuitry. It's the way you've been wired to think and believe.
All you got to do is walk through Las Vegas, and then you realize, I don't know if I'm on the right planet. But I definitely know there's a lot of people here. There was I went and saw the Rolling Stones. There was 45,000 people in the audience.
Wow.
You know what I did? I turned away from the stage and I was looking at most of the time, I was like, this is the most
legend.
Like, and you realize then I had I think Las Vegas, the high road of Las Vegas is compassion for the humans. Like, we're so many and we have so many different brains.
Yeah.
And what if we did have the ability to love unconditionally with, so are you an optimist, would you say? I'm imagining you are, but.
Oh, eternal optimist. Eternal.
Is the human brain evolving?
Oh, yeah. Oh, every brain one at a time. And that's the beauty of, for me, the experience right now of what's happening with whole brain living is people are realizing they have so much power over their own fears, and they're understanding their children's fears, and they're understanding their spouses, and they're looking at their bosses, and they're all going, I can love you with my character 4 because I can love you. And with the character 4, I connect with you. And as soon as I connect with your fear, then I have served my purpose as on the hero's journey. It is our hero's journey to love one another, to be that power, to be that goodness in the world. So every person who comes into the presence of me in pain is an opportunity for me to serve my purpose as a human being. So look at the suicide, the rates of suicide on this planet. There's what's missing is the meaning and the purpose of my life. Well, we don't exist in a society, in our left brain society, that says, you're miserable, let me love you. It's, you're miserable, let me fix you. Well, I'm not fixable. I don't need to be fixed. I need to be connected with and loved. And then I serve my purpose. And then I feel like, oh, my life had meaning today. I loved someone who was so dysregulated from their own peaceful heart. I stood in for them and I helped them self-regulate. And if we can help regulate one another, we got a whole new world.
I love that so much. You're singing my song. I think we went to the same school or something.
Yeah. I think that's why, the minute we met, it was like, it's been that way for what, a decade?
My favorite was in the middle of the reading with Jill. This is so funny. We're doing, were we on Zoom? She was like, Are you ever friends with your clients? I was
Yeah,
like,
do you ever like become friends with people?
talk about that right now. I'm doing a reading for you. But there was such an immediate connection. We couldn't help ourselves.
It's still going.
I know.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. And I fall so hard in love. My amygdala got shut down, the mean part.
Uh-huh.
I'd love to know how we could help people shut down the mean part of their amygdala, the fear factor. The amygdala is the part that goes into reaction and survival.
Right.
And so you and I, we've got this new insert that says kind,
love.
Choose
So
it.
my dream is to have school systems where, you have an irate parent come into the school system. And right now the teachers are quitting, the principals are quitting, everybody's quitting because everybody's mean and angry and hostile. So, an unhappy parent comes into a room and everybody runs, right? It's all let's get away. I want a world where the principal is busy doing his character one detailed work, doing his job because he's good at it, character one stuff, right? And then the moment a mean, unhappy parent walks in, he feels elated because there's a person in pain and I get to serve my life purpose, which is my hero's journey, to help re-regulate this person back to love. So my job now is to step out of my left brain, I need to fix it, what's the problem mode, to share with me what is your pain, what is hurting, let me hold the space with you, and then we will negotiate our way to a new higher level of function. That's my dream.
I want to vote for you for president, but I bet you don't want to run.
No, I don't want to be president. I just want to work with the president on the school system.
Let's make that happen. I bet you, if anyone can make that happen, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So when you do a podcast, what's been your best experiences? What's the ones that you can look back and go, that was really an interesting conversation? Besides,
most of them end up talking about the material in the book and blah, blah, blah. But the ones that really stand out for me, because that's me, that's my character one. It's like the same thing. It's like, no, I'm looking for the opportunity to actually love someone. And so when I find someone in pain or someone who is in their four, I had a young woman, she was in her four, she had a biking car accident. She all but died. She knew she was going to hit this car. And it's like, if I do it this way, that'll happen. If I do it this way, she ran the slow-mo. She wakes up, she hits the car. She wakes up in the ambulance. She is laughing hysterically. She can't believe she survived. She shifted completely into her character four. And now she's in all this love coming into this life, which is all dictated by our left brain and the left brain values. And she's experiencing enormous personal pain because she doesn't fit in, and she's trying to help other people find their love. And
the two of you must have fallen in love.
It was a beautiful and unusual, extremely different podcast. It was what it needed to be.
Okay, can we just stop for a minute, Miss Aries, Scorpio, driven, crazy woman over there? Can you stop for a minute with me?
Yeah.
I just want to do a prayer of gratitude that Jill Bolte Taylor took on this mission. It makes me want to cry. That you took on this mission, this life, with the angels that have arrived to support you, and that you have inspired us to come away from the left brain, old school, old boys club, and stand in the presence of the moment. Like, you have done such a feat, and that you're continuing with this endless energy that you have. It's like, you remind me of me, that you're this continuation of, I just want to give thanks. And I know the audience listening to this is going to say, wow, Deb, that energy that came off Jill Bolte Taylor, which is about wanting to introduce us to parts of our brain, but ultimately love, and see if we can't make that part of our chemistry. Yeah. And so I'm going to say, when I imagine the future, which I do a lot, because I'm very, I look a lot at the brain, because obviously I have a master's in clinical psychology. So I've always been fascinated by the impulses, the first urge, the desire to shut down, pulling back, reacting, judging. And then I've I've learned to say, I want to practice what Jill teaches, and I've gotten good at it now. I mean, I love your image that the guy comes in, the principal sees the mean parent and goes, oh boy, that's such a funny thought. Oh boy, here's an opportunity for me to love. Exactly. But I want to put it out. I want to put that out to everyone watching this, that if we inspired you today in this, I don't believe is an astrology podcast, to consider the departure or the dismantling of the normal amygdala reaction pattern, to becoming aware of the 4 parts of the brain, to becoming aware of your chart, to becoming aware of the observer, we build our mission.
Yeah. And, we're in a time where there's so much information. Go to the world of astrology, go to the world of neuroscience, go to the world of anything. Carl Jung, these 4 archetypes, we have all 4 of them in our head. We have the
4
power.
elements. Carl Jung was an astrologer.
I mean, it's all the
Carl Jung was an astrologer.
Yeah.
Those first 4 personalities Carly
Well,
worked with.
think about it. I mean, this is how I think about astrology from a scientific perspective, is that, I'm 98% water. And of course, if I'm going to have planets in certain ways, the water is going to be drawn. And we all know, I mean, if your people are not influenced by new moon and full moon, they're not paying attention, period, right? Because, I mean, all you have to do is look at the emergency room data and the numbers just, and anyway, so we're water. And so if the planets are in a certain position, the water will be spread. Osmosis is real. Osmosis is science. And if all I am is this magnificent collection of cells, then the osmosis will be influenced by all the energy and powers that influence that fluctuation of water.
I totally get that. And you want to hear my other thought? Yeah. You can't see love, but you believe in that. And you can't see gravity and you believe in that. You can't see the influence of the planets, but you got to start believing in that. Okay, we're going to finish this. We're going to wrap this up with, I just want to acknowledge that the 28 million people watching your beautiful, embodied, experiential discussion of what happened to you during that stroke that we all went through with you. Yeah. And just acknowledge that the reason why God and Goddess decided to let Jill Bolte Taylor be a voice is because they totally trust you.
Well,
that's no one's ever told you that before. They trust you because your passion is never ending. So I want to thank you for that and echo and mirror back to you as the astrologer looking at this Aries moon with Mercury and Aries. You were built for the job and you're doing a great job. And I can't wait to talk to you again when we're not being recorded. Okay, bye everybody. Anything you want to complete with? Anything you want to say before we're done? Dun, 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 dun.
We should all have our superpower song. Dun, 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 dun. That's how, if I come across someone's little 2, I move into my power and I just go and I love that person. We all have the superpower of love.
I love you, Jill.
Love you, Deb.
Thank you so much for listening. We want to keep this conversation going with you, so please subscribe to our podcast and leave a rating and review to make sure you never miss an episode. Remember, climate activist by day, human by night. Send Debra a DM on Instagram at Debra Silverman Astrology and visit DebraSilvermanAstrology.com. And we're going to leave you like we leave every single episode. Make it your mission to change the world.